Netflix just released their most disturbing documentary yet.
Sophie, do you want your best friend's mom to go to jail?
Anna! You're just being told what to do like you're a puppet.
Tiffany would flirt with him. At this time, he's probably 12, 13. He was a weirdo who hung out with 12-year-olds.
Focus on your own. Just leave our kids alone.
Hello, you gorgeous donuts. Today, we're going to be breaking down the insane documentary just released by Netflix, Bad Influence, The Dark Side of Influencing. This 3-part documentary centers around a huge child star called Piper Rockelle and her squad of friends. Piper and a group of friends amassed hundreds of millions of views and became one of the biggest groups on the internet, and also made millions of pounds in the process. Well, one person did, who we're going to discuss later in this documentary, Piper's mother, Tiffany. In this video, we're going to break down this documentary step by step as the story unfolds. We're going to talk about who Piper Rockelle actually is and her rise to fame, where everything started to go wrong and even the FBI later got involved to help these children, the explosive and disturbing lawsuit made by all of the other parents of the kids in the group against Piper's mom, Tiffany, and why everybody is now labeling this woman as the worst mother on earth. We're also going to discuss all of the decisions made by everyone featured in this documentary and the overall dangers of kids being influencers anyway, and how the people in this documentary basically exploit their children just to become more rich and famous. And we're also going to cover one specific topic in the last episode of this documentary that when I watched it for the first time, I actually broke down in tears because it's genuinely so disturbing. There's so much to talk about just from this 3-part series. Let's get into it. So the documentary kicks off basically explaining who Piper Rockelle is. It tells us how she first became famous. She was the main star of a YouTube group called The Squad, and she started influencing when she was only 8 years old. Firstly, what mother is making their child an influencer at 8 years old? What are they going to influence at that age? Are you going to tell us what the top 10 episodes of Peppa Pig is? What value can an 8-year-old influence on people? The doc then gives us our first insight into what went wrong with Piper and her family and all the other kids. Some of the headlines they used in this intro is wild. Teen YouTube star's mom boasted she was pimp making kiddie pop. 22 million lawsuit. I mean, that is one of the most mental headlines that I've ever read in my life. A YouTube stage mom faces abuse allegations from 11 teens in court case. Inside the blockbuster lawsuit threatening one teen YouTube star's multi-million-dollar empire. What is going on here? Instantly, you're kind of hooked in by just the intro alone. Later in this video, we are going to cover what Piper's mom exactly is getting sued for, because some of the things are genuinely horrific. And instantly, what makes this documentary so fascinating is a lot of the children who were actually involved in The Squad are on the documentary talking about their horrific experiences they faced. In the intro, some of the girls are sitting on the sofa and they're basically talking about their experiences of being in The Squad, and one of them says they're so sad that Piper isn't in their life anymore, and this basically alludes to the fact that Piper is still trapped with her mother. Now, one thing I am interested in is why a mother would put her daughter in this situation where she can basically be exploited. And the doc gives us some background information on both Tiffany and Piper to kind of just let us make our own minds up why Tiffany might have put Piper in this position. Piper's dad apparently left Tiffany before Piper was born, and ever since then, Tiffany seems to have some sort of chip on her shoulder, the documentary says, where she's always wanted to prove that the dad is missing out for not being in Piper's life because Tiffany has raised Piper all by herself. She would often enter Piper into pageants from the age of 2 or 3 years old, and she did really well in them. But already putting your child into competitions when they're that young is a little bit disturbing in my opinion. I know the whole kind of setup of those things is meant to be a fun experience, but in my opinion, you're not letting kids just be kids. You're putting makeup on them, you're trying to make them look older than what they are. Let them just be children. There's so many horror stories from these child stars that have been entered into into pageants from being so young, and how that like influences their mind when they grow up in a negative way. And after Tiffany, in her own words, had made Piper successful in these pageants, she decided that she wanted to take over social media. So she started her own podcast, and one of her first guests was Piper at the age of 12.
There was this app, Musically, and then that's when stuff started to happen and people started to like become my friends.
12-year-old being on a podcast talking about how they like first rose to fame is disturbing in itself just as a concept. However, like that last line that she says in the podcast saying when she started Musically, that was when she started gaining friends, like that is so sad, because automatically there she's putting her social media on a pedestal and she's saying that that's the only reason that people like her, and this has been drilled into her from a young age. What makes this comment extra disturbing is that Piper was never actually entered into school. Tiffany never let her mix with other kids, so the only person in Piper's life is Tiffany, so Tiffany has like full control over her thoughts and feelings. Now imagine being a child where you're not like gaining all of these other experiences from kids from like all walks of life. You're only getting all of your information from your mom, and if your mom is very much just pushing you down, you have to be the best, you have to have a lot of followers, you like this is all that you're worth, that's gonna have such a weird influence on your mind growing up, and you're not gonna grow up like a normal kid. And you're going to see later in this documentary how so many of the things that Piper's picked up from this age has actually had such an impact on her today. As Piper says in that podcast, she first rose to fame on Musically, which was basically TikTok before TikTok was called TikTok. It was very much like an app where young kids would like lip sync to songs, and the doc shows some of Piper's earliest videos when she was like 9 years old.
Hey guys, it's Piper Rockelle. Today we are going to be making fluffy slime. You would have to get Elmer's glue.
Like, I know some people might go, oh, this is harmless, and you know, like she's just doing what she enjoys, but the fact the camera's in her face and she's actually talking to the camera, this just shows how Piper's mom had orchestrated her social media growth from a young age. This is no accident that this child has become so rich and famous. And because of Piper's rise in fame on Musically, she actually got scouted to appear on a TV show called Dance Twins, where also Tiffany would be on camera. I believe it was a similar concept to Dance Moms, which is the show that Jojo Siwa appeared on. But it's very interesting that Tiffany also accepted to be on camera and shows kind of what she wanted in her life.
This is like a really good time for you to get first place. I would like that, you know?
Like, pushing your kids to do well is a great thing and can really, you know, steer them like with good traits to take into the future, to always want to do their best. But when you're saying like, I would really like you to finish in first place, you're putting so much pressure on that child, because all Piper at that age wants to do is make her mom proud and like feel like she's loved by her mom. Yet the only time her mom gives her love is when she succeeds to make Tiffany look like a better mom, which is just really disturbing. Now on this show, Piper actually met her first real friend called Corinne, and Corinne's mother really bonded with Tiffany because their daughters were doing the same thing. And Tiffany often talked to Corinne's mom about wanting to start a YouTube channel, and she actually done a first vlog with both Piper and Corinne, and it actually got 1 million views on upload. And this really was the start of Tiffany using other people's kids to kind of further Piper's image without asking for permission to use these kids on camera. After Piper's YouTube channel started to grow, both Tiffany and Piper would end up moving to LA in 2017, and this is where they would meet up with some sort of editor/videographer called Hunter. They gave him the on-screen character of being Piper's brother, but in fact he was actually shagging Tiffany, Piper's mom.
Hunter was Tiffany's very much younger boyfriend.
I look like the Grinch right now. So does Pipe, so does Tiff.
Now this Hunter was only 19 or 20, which, you know, is a big age range from what Tiffany would have been at the time, but also from Piper's point of view. Can you imagine what this must be like for a 10-year-old? She now has this new brother which she sees as a family, and the lines between what is on camera and off camera are kind of getting blurred because this guy's living with them. Not only is he her brother, but he's also sleeping with her mom, which makes him her stepdad. Like, this must have been so hard for Piper to process and just kind of skews the lines between what is real and what is not. And it's interesting that Tiffany Tiffany just didn't give this a second thought. She was just selfish because she just wanted to sleep with this man. And when Hunter gets involved, the brand of Piper just gets even bigger and bigger, and she actually gets drafted onto an even bigger TV show called Manny, which is produced by a huge network called Brat. Brat's a man full force. No, it's not, because a child's getting exploited. And on this show, she meets another friend called Sophie, and Piper and Sophie get on really well together. And then Piper would ask Sophie if she wanted to come to her house for a sleepover. And it was at this point that Sophie and Piper would film a YouTube video together. However, Sophie's mother had no idea that they were ever filming a YouTube video. And this is where the documentary starts to get disturbing, because obviously Tiffany probably said to Piper, do you want to invite your friend over so you can film a YouTube video? Like, kind of say to Piper that this is her idea and it would be really fun for her, when in reality, this is going to make Tiffany money. And also, could you imagine being the mother of Sophie and like you don't realise that your kid is getting put on the internet to millions of people, like you've never been asked for permission for this? I would be so fuming. It seems like all Tiffany wanted was for Piper to become like increasingly rich and famous, and this was highlighted even more when Piper was finishing filming a new season of a TV show, Manny, and another person on the show actually had more lines in this season than Piper, and apparently Tiffany rocked up to set like shouting and swearing her head off because Piper wasn't the main star of the show anymore.
You're not gonna cut my daughter. She created this show. She was like, Sophie, you need to come with us. And I was like, I'm not gonna come with you.
Isn't it weird that this Sophie at the time of this happening was probably about 10 years old and she's acting more professional than Tiffany, the actual adult here? At this point, I'm trying to work out why Tiffany is just so insecure about Piper not being successful. I wonder if it is because she still has the feelings of Piper's dad leaving before she had Piper, and ever since she's wanted to prove to him that, you know, he was wrong for doing that, even though he's wrong for doing it anyway, no matter how famous or rich Piper is. And after Piper was took off stage, she was no longer allowed to be friends with Sophie, who said that she didn't want to go with Tiffany and Piper. And I believe Tiffany stopped them being friends because Sophie was somebody that couldn't be controlled in a way. And the whole storyline about Tiffany and Piper is Tiffany needs full control of Piper to morph her into whatever she wants to make her. And the aspect of control is so apparent in this documentary. Like, after Tiffany takes Piper away from this TV show, she then decides to make her own on YouTube and just make Piper the main star and draft other kids in to be kind of side characters. A little bit like what Team 10 was, where Jake Paul is the main person and then everyone around is just kind of working towards their brand vision.
She's like, we can get this group and keep growing it.
Like, at this point, from Tiffany's point of view, I don't know if her intentions were nice and she just wanted to create a better life for her kids and all these other kids. However, I just can't really see it from her point of view because, in my opinion, you're just using kids to make you money and build your entire income off your children, which is just, in my opinion, so disgusting, and it's a growing trend on social media. People literally push a baby out and it's already got a camera in its face. It's like, what are you doing? Cut the umbilical cord first, please. You see it time and time again with family channels. Like, when the views of a family channel start going down, they then announce another pregnancy because they know that that brings people in. And I know it's a really dark thing to say, but I feel like with some channels, they just introduce a pregnancy because they know that it's going to bring them in more money. And it's almost like the child is the afterthought after the income. It's one thing I really feel passionate about, and I hate when people make their children the front and center of their content. I don't mind it when it's a family channel and they're kind of just vlogging their lives and like everyone's involved, but when it's only the children on screen, that's where I really have an issue with it. After forming her online group called The Squad, she also recruited Sophie, who was from the TV show, who she previously wasn't allowed to be friends with. The doc then spent a period of time just focusing in on how successful this squad were, and if you look at Piper's YouTube channel, the amount of views that this group amassed is genuinely insane. Like, here we have 27 million views, 15 million views, 14 million views. Like, the amount of money that this channel would have been creating would have been staggering, especially because they probably were on Google preferred ads, which a lot of child content creators get because it's seen as brand friendly, so you basically make like double or treble the money of like a creator like me. It's also very interesting that Tiffany built these videos on Piper's YouTube channel, not like a group channel. This definitely signifies that Tiffany was only really bothered about making Piper the star and everyone else was just there to help her. At this point, the group was so successful that they were going on multiple tours. They even ventured into doing music videos, which got up to 40 million views.
Treat Myself was Piper's first music video about girls who had like a spa day and they see like these cute guys and then they want to get their phone numbers.
She's 11! What do you mean? Getting guys' numbers and going on spa days? She's 11! Her mom still buys her trousers! Fucking 11! At this point, I'm unsure who's had the darker path at 11. Piper Rockelle or Millie Bobby Brown in Stranger Things. And at this point, Piper or Tiffany was a multi-millionaire. On a side note, with this documentary, one thing that I don't think is that great about it is the so-called experts they have explaining certain things about Piper's rise to fame. I don't know if this is because I do social media myself, but there's various content managers or people who supposedly know about the influencer space kind of trying to give more information on the kind of things that Piper is doing. And when I hear them say certain things, I'm kind of like, well, that's not really that correct what you're saying here. It's almost like they're explaining this documentary to people who have no idea what YouTube is. I'm going to talk a bit more in detail about that at the end of this video when I do like my full overall assessment of the doc in general, but that is one thing I was a little bit disappointed by this documentary. And somehow what happens when influencers become huge, they often get gifted free things. It's such a weird world where people who are millionaires and don't need the free things get the free things, but the people that actually need them don't get it. Unfortunately, that's just how this space works. And this is where things start to get really disturbing, especially with the gifted products she receives. They talk about it in the 3rd episode, which we're going to get onto later. There's this one man that is so disturbingly obsessed with Piper. And at this point in the doc, I'm just kind of thinking like Piper hasn't had like a normal childhood. Like to her, she's just getting all of these free things. She's getting loads of money. Everybody loves her. And this is all at the age of 11. So it's going to be so hard when she gets older to appreciate like things because she's basically had everything she's ever wanted for as long as she can remember. Not only that, she's not going to school and every single person she hangs out with is also a child star. So imagine what that's going to do to somebody's brain. Like this person is never going to be able to relate to normal people or talk about normal things. Like she just hasn't developed any other interests apart from becoming rich and famous. Now, obviously, I've mentioned that Piper and Tiffany were multi-millionaires at this point, but one thing that is interesting is the other people that were in the squad, the other kids, weren't making any money at this point, and the parents of these kids didn't even realize that Tiffany or Piper were making money, which I did find a little odd, but I guess like if you're an older person who doesn't understand this space, you're not really going to get it. But if you're seeing your kids go on tour together and getting 40 million views on a video, like would you not maybe suspect that there's money somehow in this? But I don't want to be too harsh on the mothers at this point. Later on I will be for other things, but I can get why they probably couldn't see where the money was.
Where's our money? You know, we weren't getting any money, and she's like, oh, she's getting exposure. People know her.
Sorry, that is like one of the old age like manipulation tactics in the influencer space. Oh, you don't need paid for this because you're getting the exposure. Exposure? Is that gonna pay me rent, is it? When the landlord's knocking because I'm a month late on me rent, I'll go, oh, don't worry, mate, I'll just pay you an exposure. It's not how the world works. Exposure? Just pay people. God, I'm getting angry. I've had that so many times when I was a smaller YouTuber. People are like, oh, yeah, well, if you just promote our product, we'll put you on our pages and you'll get exposure. Oh, will I? Oh, that's nice of you. Cheers for that. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Fucking exposure. What does it even mean? Exposure. Just a made-up word. I guess all words are made up, aren't they? Anyway.
You also believe they will benefit by being able to get views himself?
Now, when you listen to these mothers and the way they talk about their children, it's a running theme in this documentary that they don't really consider them as people. They often talk about them as if they're commodities, as if they're assets that they can grow and make more money in the process. And at this point, because Tiffany was making so much money, she wanted to move into a content house so they could film even more on a daily basis. And this is where she asked Sophie and Sophie's mom to move into a house with her. And at this point, Piper basically begged Sophie to move in with them because she was kind of unhappy with living with her mom alone because she didn't really like how her mom acted with her. And Sophie's mom said that she accepted to move in with them just so she could look after Piper as well. In this entire documentary, one of the only mothers that I really do kind of feel sorry for is Sophie's mom. And I think think it's because she was the one who was really manipulated by Tiffany. And she looks like the only mother that really struggles to talk about this entire scenario. All the other mothers look like they're happy talking about it. Whereas every time she pops up on camera, she genuinely looks really sad.
Piper had pulled my mom aside and asked her, come move in with her because she was like, I need a stable parent.
Again, the fact that a young child is in the headspace where they have to say to another mother, can you please move in because my mum, you know, doesn't love us for just me being me. She's more of a manager than a mum. She's just seeing me as an asset that she can use to further her income. And to further her income even more, Tiffany decided to give every single child that was in the squad their own YouTube channel. And if any of the kids had a YouTube channel before, they had to hand all of their login details to Tiffany for Tiffany and Hunter to manage, which already is really weird considering, like, you know, some of these people had already built up their own following and then they've just got to hand the keys over for no money at all. It's another manipulation tactic used by Tiffany, as Tiffany promised them that they would grow further and further if they did this. And because all of the kids now had their own channels, this means that all of those channels need, you know, they need videos to upload. So they would often make the kids work from 11 a.m. all the way until 2 a.m. every single day without a day off, 7 days a week.
Like, Sawyer, here, look, let's do this better. Sawyer, turn around.
Eventually it became, you're just being told what to do, like you're a puppet.
Come on!
And this is really sad because everyone, like, no matter if you're an adult or a kid, getting into YouTube, you do it because you love it. Like, I know a lot of people now get into it for the money, but, you know, when these people first started, when I first started, the money wasn't really a thing. You did it because you loved it. And this just takes the enjoyment out of it. And this is a job at this point. This is, like, a lot of people go out making YouTube videos, that's not a job. This is them acting on a channel. They're not allowed to be themselves. This is hard work for these kids, especially like the hours, like 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. That is a shift for anybody. And it's interesting because in Hollywood, like in typical media, there's loads of laws around the hours that kids can work or be on set. However, with like new stage media like YouTube, at the point of the squad making content, these laws weren't a thing. So it's almost like these children could be exploited and it's not breaking the law. And some of the content that these kids were made to do is honestly so alarming.
What are the odds, Coco, that you would lick that off the floor? Oh my gosh!
Like, what are you doing? Are people in public not looking at this and going, oh, why is that mother making these children lick some liquid off the ground? Should I say something? Maybe! It's so dark because what you've just seen there isn't even 1% of what's to come later in this video. Like, this looks tame compared to what's coming. And the more outrageous the content was, the more the views went up. And obviously Tiffany, that's all she's bothered about, is getting more views, getting more famous, getting more money. So she would often stretch the boat out even further, and she introduced this character which was basically her dog, and she would use her voice to speak through the dog to the children, and she'd often say really mean things to them and make them upset. But she kind of got away with it in her own mind because she was saying it was the dog talking and not her.
He would say things that Tiffany probably couldn't get away with saying in her normal voice.
Can you imagine the dog? The dog would be like, Mom, that's not what I'm saying. Mom, I'm saying she's very lovely and I really like her. And I would like to sit next to her. I'm not saying that she's lazy or crap or ugly, you bastard. Even the dog can't get away from being used. That's when you know you're in trouble. And it's just another manipulation tactic used by Tiffany. Like, if any of the kids would go, oh, I don't really like you saying that, she'd go, oh, well, it's not me saying it, it's the dog. But clearly it's not the dog because dogs can't speak, love. And if they could, that would make you a millionaire by yourself. Like, if you get a dog that can speak, honestly, you'll never have to work again. Also, it's a bit of a shame that they didn't get the dog on to talk about his experience, because I really would have liked to have seen things from the dog's eyes. That dog has seen some shit. An even more disturbing thing that Tiffany would use this dog for was to flirt with some of the children. There was this kid called Gavin that apparently Tiffany used to flirt with all the time, and she especially liked him, and she would use the dog to kind of say really weird things to him.
Tiffany would flirt with him. She would say, do you have a boner from looking at me to Gavin? At this time he's probably 12, 13.
She's fucked. Like, proper. Why would you even bring up the word boner around a 12-year-old anyway? Why are you asking if a 12-year-old has a boner from looking at you? what are you doing?
Gavin would try to laugh about it, brush it off, because he didn't really understand what she was saying. I had no idea what she was saying.
It's such a shame as well, because these children are going to think that they're safe within the presence of Tiffany and Hunter because they're adults, and as kids you just really put adults on a pedestal as if they're like the perfect protector people, whereas like they actually were in serious danger being around this woman. And later in this documentary, some of the stories they say about Tiffany and how she would use these kids in this manner is honestly so cruel. And at this point I'm really kind of looking at some of the parents of these kids and wondering why they're still allowing their children to be a part of this squad. It's referenced in the documentary that Tiffany would often like specifically pry on families that really wanted to become rich and famous, and she would like specifically pick out those sort of people that she could manipulate. And if any of the parents ever went against Tiffany, she would often just banish their kid out of the group and not allow them to be in videos anymore, which obviously means they don't, you know, raise their brand awareness. But it's a constant theme in this documentary where the parents constantly put the success of their kids over their happiness. But one thing I do want to make clear is I'm not trying to solely focus on the other parents because they're not the ones at fault here. However, what I am saying is they could have pulled their children out of this situation earlier, especially with what the doc goes on to say, where Piper was hanging out with another younger influencer and they just start getting really inappropriate things said to them.
So we were on my live stream having a good time, and then it took a really unexpected turn. She forced herself on me.
I actually just got chilled down my spine and I've already seen that clip before. The fact that was a live stream and like people could see that and she knew that this wouldn't be cut. It's almost like she feels like she's untouchable and she can treat these kids however she wants to treat them. It's even the fact that Piper drags her head away and she still goes back for more. At this point as well, she was also handing these kids alcohol and getting them drunk even though they were underage. The boy who she kissed at the time was actually only 17 and she'd got him drunk to go on a live stream, and straight after Tiffany had kissed him on the stream, he instantly ended it because he felt so uncomfortable. And this is how the second episode starts, where this boy basically opens up about his experience with Tiffany, and this is where the audience first sees Tiffany in a bad light. I don't know why Tiffany felt like she was untouchable at this point. Maybe it was because she was earning upwards of £500,000 a month, so maybe she just felt invincible. However, it's very apparent that no amount of money or no amount of fame that she makes Piper reach is enough to satisfy her ego, as she now felt like she had to take things to the next level to grow even further. And this is where she introduced crush content, where she would make the children have these fake relationships with each other because she said that it would blow up everyone's brand.
This is my first kiss. I am so nervous. Comment down below if you've had your first kiss yet.
Well, 2-6. No, I haven't, Piper. Well, hope you enjoy yours, though. Thanks for asking. I just want to know how Tiffany and her boyfriend Hunter were orchestrating this behind the scenes. Go on, Piper. Give him a kiss. Go on, lass. Go on. I don't care if you don't want to. You have to do it, because I said so. And people called Kris Jenner a monster. This is on a whole new level. And you can tell that this new strand of content made the kids feel so uncomfortable.
These kids who are pushed into acting older than they are, crushes, dating, making out, it violates their innocence on that side.
Like, imagine being that bloke, that grown man that is like orchestrating two children pretending to kiss. Like, that's when you really need to just have a good long look at yourself and be like, am I a creep? Wait, am I the baddie here? That's when you really need to, rethink your life choices, because that's disturbing me and you shouldn't be doing shit like that. This must be so confusing for the kids as well, because at that age you're kind of, going through a lot of emotions. You're kind of discovering what, you like, what you don't like. And you might even start to develop like fancy feelings for like somebody in your school class or something like that. However, could you imagine what it's like having to fake a relationship online when you're only like 13 years old? Your mind's not developed enough to be able to separate what's fake and what's real, and this is just going to be so confusing for the children. Tiffany had chosen her own daughter to be in a ship with Gavin, the boy that she apparently fancies. Typical. Which again is like so weird. Is she kind of making her daughter have Gavin because she knows that she can't have him, otherwise she would be breaking so many laws and would just be an awful human if she hasn't already proved that enough? However, even though Gavin was in a ship with her daughter, she would still flirt with them using the the dog. Just quickly, Donuts, I want to say, if you haven't already, please do consider pressing the subscribe button. We're trying to get as close to 1 million donuts on this channel as possible, so if you want videos like this to binge watch when you're bored, do join the community and press that subscribe button.
Like, she would make inside jokes towards him, which were odd. We would all kind of laugh and act like we knew what she was going with.
Bro, think of the, obviously think of the children, but think of the dog as well. Like, the dog's getting made out to be some sort of, perverted animal here. Can we just take a minute for the dog, bless him? The dog's like, Mom, can you stop making it out to be some sort of, like, predator in these videos? I literally just want to smell my own arse. But on a serious note, like, the amount of innuendos she's saying to these children obviously isn't right. And for the first time, the parents of one of these children actually stepped in as they brought Gavin out of this situation and didn't let him return to the house to film videos, which is the first time a parent has actually put their foot down and protected their child and not prioritised fame and money over the child's well-being. Bless him, like, Gavin even had to come out in a YouTube video and say why he's left the house. I think at this point the parents of Gavin had realised that Tiffany was over-sexualising these children and pushing them to be in these ships, and they just had enough.
She was asking us when we were gonna do more than kissing. I was 12 and he was 13.
Like, this is perversion, and we're breaking into so many really disturbing topics here. It's almost like she was getting off on making these kids do things that they know they didn't want to do. And this just makes me think, like, how many of these channels that have kids at the centre of it are getting made to do things they don't want to do, because when people were watching this, they didn't suspect any wrongdoing was going on. So how many of these current channels are doing this? It really just kind of opens up the conversation, and that's one great thing about the Ruby Frankie documentary coming out and this one coming out, is it's opening up the conversation about how kids need to be looked after more online, and we don't want to have more victims like the ones that have appeared in these two documentaries. Because if any of these kids said no to doing things, or like Gavin's parents where they pulled him out, they instantly just get replaced. There's like no time to talk about it. They're just instantly out and a new person is drafted in. Like with Gavin, they just replaced him with another kid that looked like him called Walker, and instantly Walker and Piper were just in this ship. And when we get introduced to Walker, I'm left like furious again, because Walker's parents, mainly Walker's mom, says that she thought this was a great opportunity for Walker to become Piper's new boyfriend because it would further his brand and hopefully make him more famous and money. And at this point, like, a couple of people have left and came out with their stories about how negative it is, but it's almost like these mothers are ignoring the red flags just because of the golden goose that their child could become. It's like nobody is acting like a parent in this documentary.
Walker and Piper became Piker. It was all new to me.
That's alright then. Well, if it's all new to you, it's all exciting, how about you protect your kid, love? Remember when you had children and you protected them and you gave them the best possible future and didn't let people use them? Can you remember those days? They were nice. Can we go back to them? Would you mind? Like, there's a clip in episode 2 where one of the parents reacts to finding out that one of her children had reached 1 million views on a video after collabing with Piper.
We got 1 million views, and we were just like, wow, this is great.
I didn't realize that that wasn't the norm.
Look, I'm trying not to be too harsh on these mothers because they have been manipulated, and they're not the main bad guys in this entire documentary. So I don't want to be too harsh on them. But how do you not know that that's not the norm, that your child posts a YouTube video and it gets 1 million views? Also, why would you think that's a good thing? If I don't know if this is just because I'm in this space, but if I had a child, it posted a video and it got 1 million views instantly, instant red flags. I'm like, okay, who is watching this? I feel like there's at least 100,000 creeps that are engaging with this. Like, why is a video of a child got 1 million views straight away? That's 1 million people you don't know who knows what your child looks like. Are the red flags not like kind of springing in your mind? I don't know if that's just because maybe I'm more of a negative thinker than this mother. I just don't see how you can only see the good here. It's just like you're ignoring every single bad thing that could possibly happen. And all the horror stories of creeps engaging with with child influencers content. And this is another example how you can see Tiffany definitely targeted families that really, you know, kind of thrived off their children being famous. And this particular mother that we've seen definitely was built this way.
They wanted you to pay 10% of your child's earnings. I don't think it's a good idea, because if we ever want to separate, you want to still be able to create content.
It's just the language she uses. It's almost like she's had a baby to make it into a business. That she's not even speaking about a child like a child. I can't believe some of the language they use here. They're just talking about their child as if it's a product. Just on a personal note, like when I have children, which I want to have, I will never be putting them online. Like when they're 18 years old and they can make their own decision to be online, that's on them. But I will never ever push them into becoming some sort of child star from young, because I just don't think it has a positive impact on their growth as a human being. And I just don't believe you should make your child your sole source of income, because that's too much pressure to put on a child when they're only 11. At this point, like this mother says, Tiffany and Hunter were asking for 10% of all revenue from any child that was involved in the squad. And in return, they were offering their services of basically editing, producing, and making them famous. Now, 10%, that's actually, you know, in terms of business dealing, that's actually not that bad. However, it was really bad because Tiffany would often use this against them to trap the parents in and trap the children in, saying the children have to film, otherwise they're going to destroy their careers. And this very much kept the power with Tiffany and Hunter, because they were the one with the expertise, they were the one with the knowledge, they were the one with the infrastructure to make these children famous. The parents had no real clue about how to maintain this if they did in fact make their children leave. We're going to see this later in this episode, where one of the children actually leaves the group and tries to maintain his like level of fame, and it just crumbles because he hasn't been taught any of the skills to maintain it. Now, what comes next in this documentary is definitely the start of things becoming even more disturbing, as Tiffany would say to the stylist and the thumbnail production team that she wanted the children to look hotter in the thumbnails to attract more viewers.
Bigger boobs, smaller waist, butt bigger, make her thighs bigger, make the guy's muscles bigger. You know it's not right, but you can't say anything.
As a grown adult, I feel like you have to say something if you're working in an environment like this, or at least bring it up into question. I'm not blaming her because she was manipulated by Tiffany in this situation. I'm not putting the blame on here, but it would have been nice for someone to kind of bring this just to protect the children. This again just proves how Tiffany just wanted more views no matter what the cost is. Like if you're clickbaiting children, you know, having bigger body parts, that isn't going to attract more children to click on those videos, because children's minds aren't working like that yet. If you're trying to show the children in a more sexualized light, that's going to attract creepy adults. That's the only kind of viewership you're going to bring in here. You're no longer trying to target kids, which is where this documentary just starts to get even more darker and darker, as this becomes the running theme throughout. Because they're just pedo baiting. That's what it is. Why could nobody say stop pedo baiting, love? On the topic of that, there was this character called Megan, who was a man, an older man, that would often buy Piper a lot of free gifts. And Tiffany knew that this man was an older man. Like, he even had a fan page where all of the photos on his Instagram were of Piper.
Tiffany said he likes pictures of Piper. You can get stuff too if you send him pictures, but he's a pervert. Like, she knew he was a pervert.
This is one of the most disturbing things that I keep using that word, but this is just the perfect word to sum up this documentary. This is your child, and you know that a pervert is engaging with their content, and you're like leaning into that because they're getting free stuff. It's said that Tiffany would often get bought Gucci bags, and Piper would often get bought like Louis Vuitton, loads of high-end items from this Megan character. And the fact she's saying to the other parents, look, if you send him some photos as well, like, you're gonna get like a free bag. Is it worth it, love? No. Never. You're putting your child in harm's way just in return for a Gucci bag. That is one of the lowest things a mother could ever do, and just proves where our priorities lie.
Tiffany would be like, Piper, like, Megan's on the phone. Piper would go over and be like, hi, Megan.
Sorry, what? Imagine just putting yourself in Piper's shoes. Like, your mom's like, Piper, Mr. Pervert's on the phone. Can you speak to him for a little bit? Right, you want that new Gucci bag though, don't you, love? Here you go. Right. 5 minutes. That's all he's paid for. The bloody perv. Like, the photos is already too far and just ridiculous, but actually like allowing this man to speak to your child, like putting your child in that situation where, you know, you're not even the middle person here. Like, this is just direct content where you're not even involved and just kind of palming it off as if it's nothing. This just gets me so sad because people like this don't deserve to have children. There's so many people out there that would love to have children and would treat children so well, and the fact that people like this have children and treat them this way is genuinely gets us so angry.
Friend came home and asked me why old men like to smell underwear. It's one of those things where, again, where did you get this?
Now, this Corinne asked her mum that because Tiffany was actually sending Piper's used underwear in the post to this Megan and other characters in exchange for money. Before this point of the documentary, I didn't think anything else could kind of leave us speechless. However, when I heard that for the first time, that was where I had to pause it and just sit for a little while because I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad for Piper. Bearing in mind, I think she was like 11 or 12 at this point, and your mom is taking your dirty underwear and actually posting that to a grown adult. Can you imagine how that would make Piper feel? And I think the most disturbing thing is it doesn't even seem like it really affected Piper. This was just normalized to her, which is even so much worse because at this point she can't even tell what's bad and what's normal. And Tiffany wouldn't even hide this. Like, she would try and convince the other moms to do the same. I don't know if she was going to get a 10% cut of that money too. It's just how unapologetically bad Tiffany was and how she was proud of how much she was using her child for her own benefit. You know, a lot of disturbing people would keep this to themselves that they're doing this, but the fact she would boast about it just makes the whole thing even more creepy. The documentary does a little piece on how it's been proven that young girl influencers, when they have a huge social media following, a lot of that following is often made up by older creepy men who obviously are engaging with this content for all the wrong reasons. And again, it's another sign that there really needs to be more rules brought in about how old you need to be to post on social media and like what is consent, because at 12 years old a child can't consent to being posted online. It's all with the parent, and when their parent is mentally messed up, it just sets the child up for failure for the rest of their life. And not only was Tiffany doing this to our own child, she was also like upping the level for other people's children as well. She done this one challenge in a YouTube video where she made two of the children do a kind of like mirror my crush challenge, where whatever the boy did, the girl also had to do. And in this video, they made the boy take his top off, which in turn made the girl have to take her top off. Luckily, she didn't do it. However, Tiffany was persuading her to lift it up, and even in the thumbnail, they used a photo where the girl is basically alluding to taking her top off, and she was only 12 years old. On top of the kids being traumatized in this way, they would often be traumatized by the pranks that both Tiffany and Hunter would make them do. Most of the pranks were all real, like the kids didn't know what was going on. There was somewhere like one of the kids was getting arrested and all of the other kids were crying about it. There was another one where Piper was the only one who knew about the prank, and she basically pretended to break her leg and faint in the middle of nowhere, and the kids had to like organize an ambulance to come and save her life. Like, again, this might not seem as bad as what the previous stuff that we've mentioned in this video. However, all of these things are going to stay with these kids for life, and it's going to, you know, really make who they become as adults. And at this point, Tiffany had anonymously been reported to the authorities, the child protection services, and they paid her a visit, and she actually had manipulated Piper and Sophie into saying nice things about her, so the child protection services didn't basically take them away.
Sophie, do you want your best friend's mom to go to jail? And I was like, no. You need to do this correctly, both of you. I am nothing but nice.
Do you know, if you have to say that to your own child and her best friend, chances are you're probably not the best, love. If you've got to persuade them to tell somebody else that you're completely normal, chances are you're not normal. And at this point, Tiffany is getting really self-conscious and really is struggling to trust people around her because she doesn't know who kind of sent this anonymous tip to the child protection services. And she asks to see Sophie's phone as Sophie lives with her, Piper's best friend. And she found a text on Sophie's phone where Sophie had texted her own mom saying, can we please adopt Piper and leave this place? And apparently after seeing this message, Tiffany just went ballistic. She even put Sophie on a 2-week filming ban.
The only way that she could be back in the squad is if I was to give up parental right. And I said, fuck you and fuck your squad. And
thank you, love. Finally. You got away from this woman. Imagine saying that to another mother. Like, if you want your child to be in my child's YouTube videos, you actually have to sign all of the rights away from being the mother of your own child. That's the only way she's going to be able to film a crush challenge. You'd be like, no. Fuck you and fuck your channel. I think it's important to note at this point, like, Piper is a huge victim in all of this. Like, a lot of the stuff we're talking about doesn't actually involve Piper, but the main victim, in my opinion, is Piper, because she's the only one that can't leave. These other kids, these other parents can pull their children out and kind of look after themselves and protect themselves, but nobody, not a single person in this documentary is looking at it from Piper's point of view and trying to help Piper. They're kind of just saving themselves or trying to think about everything from their point of view. And it's such a shame because this poor girl has got nobody on her side. I do really feel sorry for Piper's best friend Sophie, as after she was pulled out of the house, she wasn't actually allowed to see a real boyfriend who was also in the squad. Not only was she not allowed to see him because of Tiffany saying that they're not allowed to have contact, Tiffany actually brought in another girl who she then shipped with Sophie's boyfriend, and then them two just like became a thing, and Sophie was out of the picture. Like, again, this would be tough for anyone, even an adult, but imagine a child having to process those emotions and feelings that they're instantly replaced because of a text message. That's just going to like make you take so many negative habits into forming who you are as an adult, and it's going to make you think that whenever you make a mistake, like the whole world's over, and that you can't make a mistake and you can't like express how you feel, otherwise like terrible things happen. All of these actions from Tiffany have such a negative impact on how these people grow up, and it's so sad to see. Shortly after this, Sawyer, who was one of the kids that had been there from the start, had recently hit 1 million subscribers, and he decided to leave the squad. He said numerous times in this documentary that he felt like a paid actor, and he wasn't coming up with the concepts, he wasn't coming up with the thumbnails, the titles, any of the content. He literally was just being paid to just be like this lifeless body on the channel, even though the channel was his. And he said that it was really scary when his family decided to pull him out of the squad, because he didn't know how to kind of maintain his influence, because he hadn't been told any of the skills. All of these skills had kind of been gatekept by both Hunter and Tiffany, purposely, obviously, because they didn't want anybody to leave and do better than them. Because if Tiffany really wanted to help these children and actually wanted to, you know, make a better future for these kids, she would have taught them, like, oh, you're doing well because of this. Like, when you do this in a video, it means it does this to the algorithm. Like, she would have really have walked them through everything, so that whenever they want to leave, they can also, like, use this knowledge to further their careers. However, they just know nothing about how to maintain their influence, and it's so sad. And unfortunately, as soon as Sawyer left, his channel just dropped off, and even to this day, like, it's not really that active or doing that well. Moving on, in episode 3, it starts off with some of the parents sitting down with somebody that used to work at YouTube and talking about how their children's channels fell off instantly after leaving, and they basically blame it on Tiffany doing certain things to make sure that their children's channels don't appear in the algorithm. For instance, there was a few occasions where she would embed the links of their videos onto porn sites, so it like creates this like negative SEO chain, which means their videos won't get promoted anymore. Which not only is that disturbing because you're trying to just destroy a child's YouTube channel, but you're also exposing these children to, you know, sexual websites, which is the most disturbing thing. However, the parents don't even seem that disturbed by the porn thing. They're just disturbed that their kids' channels aren't getting views anymore, which again is just a running theme that is constant throughout this documentary. Is the parents never seem to care about the disturbing things. They only care about how well their children's careers are doing. Now, stuff like this, like posting these links on these websites, will have a negative impact on the SEO, but I still feel like the main reason why these kids weren't successful after was because they weren't given the knowledge. They didn't understand why they were growing, and if you don't understand why you're growing, you're just setting yourself up for failure. You see it many times where people get huge shout outs from huge creators and then instantly fall off because they haven't had to like work to get to that level. They've kind of got the massive shout out and then they have to quickly try and like maintain it without knowing how to. I feel like myself, I had a really good perspective on this situation because obviously I do this as a job and I understand how like YouTube works as a platform. But I definitely think Tiffany and Hunter were definitely trying to sabotage these channels as well. Like that didn't help at all with the growth of them. They did various things, like they made Piper record a video where she would publicly unfollow all of the members that had left the group. And this basically says to the viewers like, oh, what, these people have left Piper? Like how horrible are these people? And they would receive a lot of hate because of this. Like these are kids receiving this hate from other kids or creepy grown adults. One of the mothers literally begged Tiffany to stop sending hate towards her child.
Leave my kid alone. Leave these kids alone. Focus on your own. Just leave our kids alone.
Now that must be horrible for any mother to have to say, like, especially, you know, I give some of these mothers a little bit of grace because of the age they are, they might not understand social media as well as what kids do, and Tiffany was a little bit younger than some of these, so she probably had a better kind of knowledge of social media and definitely used this against these mothers and manipulated them. I just want to make that clear because I have said a few bad things about these mothers, but they're not the main issue in this documentary at all. I just don't think they helped matters. But still to this day, when you listen to these kids talk about, you know, this entire experience that they had being in Piper's kind of squad, they all just seem so traumatized by it, and it's really sad to see, and it's definitely had lasting impacts on their future. Now at this point, all of the mothers are blaming Tiffany for their kids not being, you know, as successful as they thought they could have been, and they collectively came together to sue Tiffany for huge amounts of money. I'm talking tens of millions of pounds in damages. And one thing I found really interesting is what the attorney says when he kind of reviews this case.
Parents at that time were mostly concerned about the effects that they saw on these kids' careers, and what they did to these children is shocking.
Now, I've said this already, but I literally got a shiver down my spine when he said that. This is an attorney who has no emotional involvement in this situation. He is just doing his job and reviewing the case as a whole, and he has seen every single insight of what has happened here. And he himself has said the parents initially weren't asked about the trauma the kids have been through. They were mostly bothered about the impact it's had on their careers. And this is the thing that I've said throughout this entire video. These parents didn't even like contemplate the emotional damage that their own kids were going through. And this is why a lot of them didn't pull their kids out of it earlier, because they kind of ignored that their kids might have been unhappy because of, you know, the future of millions they could possibly earn. And this is just proven by what the attorney has said. The attorney probably walked in and went, I know, like, obviously you're a bit, you know, bummed about, you know, all of your children's YouTube channels falling off, but anything about the trauma? Anything about the, you know, the sexual stuff, or, you know, just like the pranks? Anything about that? No, is that right? We're not suing them for, okay, right, makes my job easier. Again, I want to create like a balanced video here. I know that the parents might not have, you know, been able to see all of these things that were going on, but what I'm trying to get at here is I feel like they should have just listened a little bit more to their kids, just ask them what's going on here, because some of the kids were coming out and saying things, but they weren't really listening. Now at this point of the doc, I just want to give you a trigger warning, because we get really, really deep here, as like situations surrounding SA are talked about in quite a lot of detail. It starts off with Corinne talking about how Tiffany basically asked her at the age of 11 if she's ever given anyone a blowjob.
She was like, you can like do it on Hunter, like I'll show you like with Hunter, and then they were like laughing like really hard.
Oh my god. Like, you see the age of her here, like an 11-year-old child, and, you know, somebody who you look up to as like a safe person, like you should feel safe in their presence, is basically like alluding to the fact if you want to suck off her boyfriend, you can do it. This makes me never want to allow my child to ever go to a sleepover or ever just not be in my presence ever. Oh wait, but then I'm just turning into Tiffany, not letting her go to school or letting them go to school. Fuck, I hate this world. And you can see in Corinne's face, like when she's even talking about this now, she just feels so uncomfortable. Like she's playing with her hair. She's trying to like kind of, you know, just kind of take her mind off how deep it is, what she's been through actually is. We then get introduced to a character that Tiffany would often use only off camera called Lenny, which apparently was like the voice of a dead cat that she would often like talk in when she wanted to talk sexually to the children.
On her hands and knees, like pinning us down, saying that she was a mountain goat. She did that spit thing where you like take spit down and then you like suck it back up.
Okay, right, I think I've heard enough. This woman is genuinely like one of the most disturbing. Is she maybe the worst? You know, I've done a couple of videos on Astravino on my Reacts channel. I thought she was bad. She's nothing on this woman at all.
She grabbed me, I don't know, by my waist or like my legs. Tiffany said in Lenny's voice, I have my pants down, do you want to come look?
Even the fact that this child couldn't remember exactly, you know, where Tiffany touched her, like that's like a trauma response. Like she's blacked this out of her mind, and she is a young child now. Can you imagine how young she was at the time of Tiffany intimidating her and speaking to her like this? Could you imagine how scared you would feel as a child and how like you would bottle this up and not want to ever tell anybody?
And I woke up and she was like on top of me, like rubbing her hand all over me, saying it was Lenny's dick.
Oh, this is probably the hardest video I've ever had to do. Like just listening to her talk about it, just listening to her like talk about it and how much this has impacted a human being, and she had to go through this as a child, is just one of the worst things. And I hope this woman is doing well today and is kind of dealing with this pain in the best possible way that she can. This is Sophie, who was Piper's best friend at the time, that lived with Tiffany as well. And she said that she had a lock on her door that Tiffany knew how to bypass, so she was never like able to get away from Tiffany, or never able to kind of feel safe in her own presence, because Tiffany could walk in and do this to her at any time. And she said how still to this day she sleeps with a weapon by her bed in case anybody comes into her house, because she just can't get over the fact that she's in a safe place. And I like, although I haven't been through that exact scenario, when I was younger my house got burgled, and like for like a year after, I used to sleep on the floor in a sleeping bag, like with my head against my bedroom door, just in case, like just in my own head it was like if anyone comes in I'm instantly woken up so I can hide. But I know what she went through was a lot worse, but what I'm trying to say is like this stuff really sticks with you. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night, like, you know, randomly thinking someone's in the house and getting like really on edge. So I can't even imagine what this is like for Sophie, where she went through SA. This stuff doesn't just leave you, it sticks with you forever, especially when you're a child. This really morphs you into the person you're about to become, and you take these traits into your adulthood. And it's evil that an adult would install this kind of fear into a child. Now moving on, once the lawsuit was in full flow and things were getting released about it, Hunter actually was interviewed to talk about his experience, and it was such a shame because he just defended Tiffany the entire time. He said that Tiffany was never abusive to anybody and that she was a great boss to work for. I'm unsure if he's scared of her, or if like she's the only way that he feels like he can make money or feel valued, and he still has his fingers in the Piper Rockelle pie of revenue. I'm unsure why he's still siding with her. Some people have said that he's also manipulated by Tiffany, and that might be true, but also this man is a grown man at this point and he should be able to see between right and wrong. This man didn't grow up in this environment. He came into this environment when he was 21. He had had a childhood before this. He should be able to see what Tiffany is doing to these children isn't right, and he can't bypass saying he didn't know any of this was going on because he also lived in the house. It's very similar to the case with Ruby Frankie, where the husband kind of wipes his hands of any responsibility of any wrongdoing, saying that it was all Ruby Frankie and not him. There's so many parallels between this and that documentary that we covered, and it's clear that the kids have zero sympathy for him either.
I have no sympathy for him. I just think he was a weirdo who hung out with 12-year-olds.
Fair's love. That makes sense. I feel like she's totally valid for that. If you're like a 21-year-old and you've got a camera and you're going up to kids and making them kiss, you're a little bit of a weirdo. Actually, not even a little bit, you're a total weirdo in my opinion. If one of my mates was doing that, I'd be like, mate, we're not friends, I need to report you to somebody. And after the lawsuit was released publicly, it's alluded to that Tiffany made Piper do a response video on her YouTube channel where Piper was basically saying her mom's the best person ever, all of these people that are coming out against her and her mom are all liars, and they just want want their money. And you can see in this video, it's clear as day that all of the thoughts that Piper has is from her mom, like her mom has manipulated her into thinking that they're the perfect people and everyone else is trying to destroy their kingdom. Again, Piper's a victim here, and none of this should be used against Piper because she's basically just a puppet of what her mom thinks. So anything you see Piper say moving forward is probably just what her mom wants her to say. If you ever see anything on social media Piper posts. And after this, YouTube actually demonetized Piper Rockelle's entire channel, which is like a huge move from YouTube, basically taking away her entire income, and because of this she was also getting no brand deals. So at this point, Piper Rockelle is earning Tiffany no money at all and is no longer an asset to her, because obviously at this point she just doesn't even treat Piper like a child or her own daughter. She just treats her like she's an employee. Now, from Tiffany's point of view, if Piper is no longer bringing you any money in, you need to figure out another way to bring money in to pay the bills, pay the mortgages. Piper would often say to other influencers that she was really stressed because she had to pay the mortgage for her mum. Bearing in mind she's like 13 at this point, like a child shouldn't have that stress put upon them. And now Tiffany had made Piper branch out into some weird apps. One of them that she made her do was Brand Army, which they basically say is like OF, except like 13-year-olds can post on it. You're just not allowed to post total nudity. But what is really weird about this website is you have to be 18 to be able to like pay and subscribe to someone. So basically this entire app is young people making content for adults, which again is just a really, really, really creepy concept.
Brand Army is a website that is allowing adults to subscribe to exclusive content of minors.
Even like the picture they've used to kind of draw these people in, like you can see it looks like Piper's in some sort of bikini, bearing in mind like what is she, like 14 or 15 at this point, and this is all her mom making her do this. There's multiple videos and pictures that the documentary shows that I don't even really want to show in this video, where Piper's in bikinis and she's kind of like trying to look a certain way to entice these older men to pay more money to unlock more photos and videos. It's so disturbing and is clearly something that Tiffany has pushed Piper into doing. And Piper, probably from her point of view, doesn't even see this as a bad thing, because from the age of like 11, her mom's been selling her used underwear, so this probably doesn't seem like anything compared to that, especially when she's had to talk on the phone to actual perverts. This probably seems like nothing. One influencer came out in the documentary and said that Tiffany often shouts at Piper from behind the camera when she's taking these photos or videos to be more provocative, otherwise she's not going to earn enough money to pay the mortgage. And this is where the documentary basically comes to an end, and I'm glad that they brought it back to Piper, because, you know, there's a lot of talk about the mothers being victims, the other children being victims, and they definitely are in this scenario. But again, the main victim here is Piper, and nobody has managed to successfully get Piper out of this situation. Everyone, as they should, looked after their own children, but even just speaking about this, it makes us so sad that nobody thought of going the extra distance to try and help Piper get out of there. And still to this day, she is trapped in this bubble with her mother, where her mother is using her to gain more income. Like, you look on Piper's Instagram, all of the videos are just like appearing to be provocative and are just her wearing like minimal clothing. And a lot of the comments are really horrible towards her. Like, people are being horrible towards her. It's as if they've missed the entire point of the documentary. There was even a scenario that I covered on my Reacts channel where Piper went to the Bop House, which is basically an OF house for young girls to kind of collaborate and make money. And she went to this house when she was, I think, like 15 years old. So even people who are in the industry, who know about Piper's story, are using her to make their income bigger. It's just every single person around this girl is using her for their own gain. Nobody is thinking of things from Piper's point of view. And honestly, it's so infuriating, because this girl is just going to keep getting taken advantage of if nobody steps in. Apparently the FBI are looking at this case, but they need to gather more information. So I'm just hoping that the awareness that this documentary is created, and also people like me making videos on it, can really spread the message here of this girl really, really needs help. And yeah, that's all I really have to say on this documentary. I hope you enjoyed my coverage of it as much as you could. I know it was quite a deep one. If you do want to watch my video on the Ruby Frankie documentary, documentary, click here because I went into depth on this entire series, which is even more disturbing, arguably. Or if you want a bit of a lighter watch this video here, Donuts. And thank you very much for dedicating your time to watch this. I really do appreciate it. Bye-bye.